Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. At the time of this video's release, it will have been 20 years since the debut, or since the premiere, of the first movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I saw it in the theaters, back when it was, all the rage. And I have to say, I was, I was quite taken aback by it, because it was, it featured a story I really don't think I've ever seen, I've ever seen the likes of up until then, and also given all of the practical effects and all of the swashbuckling goodness that it brought to the silver screen, it unsurprisingly launched an entire film franchise, probably among the most watched of the 21st century, and brought pirates back into the cultural zeitgeist, where it seems they are here to stay, because the pirate stuff gets made, has gotten made a bit more often over the past 20 years than it is safe to say than in the 20 years before that. And I wanted to show my appreciation towards this, towards this franchise by looking into some of the characters that have shaped the narratives. I wanted to do a top 10 villains of the franchise. However, the wiki and the official wiki, and as well as various other sources, don't really mention any villains to the franchise. So instead, I'm going to call them antagonists. It actually kind of makes sense why there wouldn't be, straight out villains, because the franchise is to some extent built upon a certain sense of moral ambiguity, whether or not that is whether or not the movies themselves actually actually fit that. But still, I'm going with what the franchise marketing says, and I'm gonna call all the characters I mentioned here antagonists instead. And I'm gonna talk about the ones that I think have shaped the narrative the most, and have the most interesting stories, in their own right. So yeah, with that out of the way, it's time I delved into my list. At number 10, we've got the Kraken. This is just the mouth, and this is Jack Sparrow for reference. If you're familiar with the movies, I think you recognize this image in particular, and I don't think you need me to tell you, why the Kraken is on the list, because he is very much the enforcer for the main enforcer of Davy Jones, and is absolutely a living nuke, or the closest thing to a nuke or a WMD that the setting has, and as such, the threat level that this being poses is off the charts. It does, however, suffer somewhat from villain decay, because when I first see the Kraken in action, it can take a ship down in like a blink of an eye, like literally in single digit frames. But then every other engagement it has with a ship is like multi-stage and more complicated than that. Even though I don't really think it should or would make sense. There has been some criticism regarding how it's regarding how it reaches its end, but honestly, I'm fine with that, because it does signal a very significant changing of the guard, if I'm to be perfectly honest, within the world itself. And for that reason, I won't hold its demise against it, but I will hold some of the things that that it's involved in a little bit against it. Also, as a plain monster, the Kraken really doesn't have doesn't really have its any of its own distinctive narrative to speak of, apart from in its end. Still, it is a very interesting presence, and it does leave a sizable impact upon the narrative. For that reason, it makes its way at number 10. At number 9, we got Ian Mercer, from one main villain's enforcer to the other. Mercer arguably has even less of a story of his own than the Kraken does. However, the level of menace he poses is a little bit more intriguing. It is a little bit more direct and more precise. And the fact that it comes from a from a more human character makes it seem makes his relative threat level just that little bit more interesting, just that a little bit more outstanding. And I'll argue that he is more influential within the series as a whole, given what it is that he does. Unfortunately, he doesn't really stand out. Beyond that, but still, he does fulfill an interesting role within the movies. For that, he comes in at number 9. At number 8, we've got Blackbeard. Yeah, I'll let you in on a little secret. All the big bads from each movie will show up over the course of this list, and therefore Blackbeard is obviously the lowest ranked among them. Not necessarily because he isn't menacing. I actually think the menace that he does cultivate is among the more interesting that are presented throughout the movie. He has been made a little more subdued, a little more of a passive or lingering threat, rather than the active, chaotic force of destruction that his historical counterpart arguably was. That really makes for an interesting dichotomy or divergence, especially when considering the rest of the antagonists the main characters face. However, overall, I'm not necessarily sure that his interactions with the other characters really stack up or really help emphasize his role within the narrative. For that reason, while he does provide something intriguing to the cast, he doesn't go much further. He doesn't go any further within this list of antagonists. Still, he is a distinctive figure worthy of attention. At number 7, we've got Armando Salazar, the main villain of the 5th movie, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I was blanking out on the title there for a little. The most disappointing thing about Salazar is, to be honest, the wasted potential, especially when you consider where he shows up within the main character story. For those who are unfamiliar, Salazar represents Jack Sparrow's first major victory as a pirate captain. Namely, he was a vicious pirate hunter in his day, and then however, when the opportunity arose, Jack Sparrow came to command and opposed him, and managed to defeat him. Ultimately bringing him to a cursed place from which he could not leave. Now, several decades later, Jack Sparrow is no longer in his prime, and his first major threat is coming back to take revenge on him. There is a lot that could have been done with that, with that premise. However, the movie itself focuses just a little bit too much on Henry and Karina, and their respective quests, making what is the most interesting part of the movie not as interesting as it could have been. So, fortunately, he really stands as an example of wasted potential. Still, he is an interesting villain concept, at least, and one who definitely leaves an impression, given his arguably limited presence within the franchise. Hence, number 7. At number 6, Bootstrap Bill Turner, from someone with very little of his potential actually realized to someone who is fully realized in his potential, I would argue. And in fact, he is very much a tragic antagonist in that sense, because through all of his actions, he ultimately always adds complications that the main characters have to overcome, and ultimately he to the point where he ultimately becomes a cog in the destruction of the or the machinations in the destruction of the main characters, or the machinations of the other villains, and that really and that ultimately makes the tragedy of his situation that much more apparent. He is he is an interesting example of what this franchise could do when it was in its prime, so to speak. And I find a lot of his interventions and a lot of his appearances are that much more touching and that much more revelatory when it comes to the stakes of this of the narrative. So for that reason, due to the fact that his actions and his story interact with those of the main characters in very intriguing ways that actually add a lot of dimension to the world, he goes all the way up to number 6. At number 5, we have Angelica. This is the first time I have to actually commend the actors playing them. Okay, it's not actually the first time, it's the second time, because Ian McShane as Blackbeard did actually deliver a very good understated performance, but Penelope Cruz absolutely nailed Angelica. She knew absolutely what this character was about and how exactly to emphasize every aspect of her surprisingly multifaceted character. Through her previous relationship to Jack Sparrow, to their shared history, and going into her abilities, her interests, her desires, and also the ways she interacts with the rest of the cast. All of that adds a lot of dimension and a lot of intrigue to intrigue to her. And all I can say is I found her to be much more a much more enjoyable figure to follow than her father had been. So yeah, she's a great fun villain who probably would have deserved her own her own movie. Anyway, moving on to number 4, Commodore James Norrington. Norrington is, I think, the most underrated character in the entire franchise, because within every fandom space I've seen him, there isn't really a lot about him. People just kind of stereotype him as the as the dutiful soldier or something like that. And while that is part of his personality, there is somewhat more to him. He does actually care about performing his duties, not just looking as though he is performing his duties. He actually wants to do the right thing and perform a meaningful service to his oath and to his duty towards the crown. It is seeing a very straight-laced character interact with basically a cast full of scoundrels, including within the same hierarchy as him, adds a lot of dimension to the story as a whole, and contributes to the outstanding impression that this series in general leaves. Also, it is perhaps worth noting that he is, I think, the only character who manages to outsmart Jack Sparrow twice, or maybe not necessarily outsmart, but outplay him. In Curse of the Black Pearl, and in Dead Man's Chest. I was kind of blanking out on the names there. Anyway, he's a very very interesting character and a very competent one who manages to add a lot of dimension and a lot of intrigue to the actual narrative. For that, he comes in at number 4. At number 3, the bronze medal goes to Davy Jones. If you've been following this list closely enough, I think you can realize what the top 3 are. And if I'm to be perfectly honest, if you make your own list such as this one, I'm pretty sure our top 3s will look exactly the same, even if not in the same order. So if this guy is your is your favorite villain or your favorite antagonist of this movie, then that's fine too. For me personally, however, he is the number 3, and well, why exactly what it is exactly that makes him that brings him so high onto this list? Well, first of all, he is the main villain of the second movie. He is the titular dead man to whom the chest belongs, and and I think his actual backstory of having literally given up his heart so he could perform his duty, only to then be spurred and become and then wander around for eternity, just becoming kind of a a vengeful demon, is an interesting story to follow in and of itself. But what is more intriguing is how his story is actually handled with maturity, even though his actions arguably make him among the most mature characters of this entire franchise. He does actually have a lot of dimension. He does actually have an important role within the narrative, and the movies themselves actually do quite a bit to expand upon what it is that makes him intriguing, and what it is that makes him exciting to follow. For that reason, for all of the depth that is given to him, depth. He stands out as one of the most distinctive, most memorable characters within the franchise. For that reason, I have to bring him all the way to the podium, and more precisely at number 3. At number 2, we've got Hector Barbosa, the villain of the main villain of the first movie, and arguably the one character who, alongside Jack Sparrow, really deserves to be the mascot or the signature character of this entire franchise. Given how his character arc has morphed and developed, he is in many ways constantly changing, but however his appeal stays pretty much exactly the same, because he is that very archetypal swashbuckling adventurer character, both as a villain and as a hero within within any given story, with his own very interesting and intriguing mannerisms, intentions, and a both quiet and overt charisma to him. He just draws attention towards himself, and can work it in some very interesting ways. I can't help but find him. For that reason, I can't help but find him very a very interesting character to follow. Not to mention the way he manages to counter Jack, who is arguably the main mascot of this franchise. Really helps. Does all the more to make him. You can tell this is off the cuff. Anyway, his interactions with the other signature character of this franchise do a lot to help elevate both him and his presence within the franchise, as well as the presence of this franchise within the greater public awareness. For that reason, he shoots up very high to the very close to the top of this top 10, but he is not the best villain or best antagonist of this franchise. That honor instead goes to Cutler Beckett. My gold medal goes to the head honcho of the East India Trading Company. What is it about him that makes him as distinctive as he is? Well, he does have for one, he has a very ruthless, very captivating nature. He always has his mind towards the next steps. He always knows what it is that he is after, and he always takes whatever steps are necessary in order to make that happen. And he will use any person, any figure, any conjecture he needs to in order to make that happen. That makes him perhaps the biggest menace of the entire franchise. Not necessarily in terms of physical force. That honor definitely goes to the Kraken. But in terms of the but in terms of his strategic flexibility and the options he always keeps open for himself, those make him and more interesting to follow, and more and a greater menace to arguably the entire world. and and then his actual characterization within the movies is somewhat slim. I'm pretty sure there is like expanded material, comics, books, games, etc. that goes a little bit more into that. However, the attention he is given, and the history and the history and the history that is being shown, as well as his ability to to strategize, as well as his goals, do make him shine as not just a major threat, but also as a very deliberate, very insightful character who in spite of having limited screen time, actually has a lot of dimension and a lot of depth given to him. So full credit to Tom Hollander for his outstanding performance, there. And ultimately, it is that combination of his quiet charisma, his relentless drive, and his strategic flexibility that makes him arguably the most dangerous character within the setting, and definitely the best antagonist that this franchise has seen. And yeah, that was it. Those were the 10 best antagonists of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please leave a like, and maybe also share this video wherever you think others will like it as well. I'd also like to thank you for your attention, and remind you that if there is anything you'd like to add to the video or to the figures mentioned within, if you think there is anyone who should have been on this list instead, or if there is anyone who you think shouldn't have been on this list, well, that's everything. All of that you can mention in the comment section. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and literature topics, a link to which you will find in the description down below, right past all of my social media accounts, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. You'll also find my Patreon listed down there in case you want to support me more directly, and maybe even receive perks such as early access to videos and scripts, both for this channel and my main one. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.